Hey, what's up everybody? It's your mortgage expert, Brian McCauley here. So you're looking to buy a new house and you're leaning towards new construction? I want you to think twice. In this video, I'm gonna teach you a couple things you must avoid so you've got no nightmares and big surprises once you move in. So listen, the DFW housing market is continuing to thaw out and heat up, and potential homebuyers out there are stuck with two choices: buy an existing house or buy a new construction. While new construction seems to be on the rise and it seems to be popular, the number one thing that I want you to take out of this video are the new construction property taxes. This is a huge issue that people are running into during the transaction, at the end of the transaction, and then it's sometimes the property taxes adjust the year after, and it can be a huge payment shock and a huge spike to the homeowner, leaving them in a bad situation because they already had the new construction house, but the payment was lower and all of a sudden now it goes up. And so what I want to unpack and deep dive on this video is really specific to the property taxes on a new construction house, how to view them, what to avoid, and how to make sure that your lender and the property taxes don't sneak up on you and catch you off guard after the fact. Here's what I want you guys to understand about property taxes. So mortgages have the mortgage payment, you have the homeowner's insurance, and then every property has property taxes. What happens is when you buy an existing property, it's been around for 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, you know, the house has been established, the county has assessed property taxes on that specific property. So the property taxes that a lender is going to use on that property are pretty close because it's obviously established. It may be off by, 2, 3, 4% as things continue to adjust, but there is an existing property on there. There is a tax certification, and the lenders, basically can go online, look at whatever the certification value is right now, and we use that to set you up for success for your payment. So that's very easy and easily done when you're buying an existing house. But I want to switch gears to new construction because I get so many questions on this. I have so many people call me after the fact, but more importantly, not on our side with clients, but with other lenders and agents that may not know how to read and look at the property tax piece. I have so many people call me and say, hey, I closed on my house, my taxes were this, I got an assessment in the mail from the county the year after and the taxes went way up and my payment went way up, Brian. I'm just super scared because it jumped $400, $500, $600, $700. I'm stuck, what do I do? So I'm gonna talk about why that happens in the second half of the video, but I'm gonna talk about in the first half of the video how to avoid that. Because if you can avoid that, you won't have that back-end huge payment spike problem, causing it an issue for the homeowner, but also sometimes the payment goes up so much that people either default on the property or they have to refinance to reset it when the terms aren't as good, but they're just trying to get out of that property tax hole. So let's go to square one and talk about how all this starts. What happens is consumer, couple go to a new subdivision, they meet the sales rep of the subdivision, they say, hey, I want to do a new construction home. Hypothetically, this is a $500,000 new construction home. Let's sign the contract right now. We will build the house. It'll take 9 months. You can pick out all your fixtures, all your colors, all your fun stuff, blah, 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 in the beginning. And then what happens is we, as the builder, we will start to build the property. So let's just pretend like Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse bought a house, put it under contract, started the house in March, and they're set to close in, let's just call it November, okay? So there's a 9-month gap there. They're building the house, everything's great, people are waiting, they're picking out their colors, you go out there and take pictures, everything else is good, and you're just super excited about your house that's being built, and you're gonna live there with your family and make memories, and everything's brand new, and nobody's lived in it, and it's just perfect how you want. So that's the exciting part, but here's how property taxes work on a new construction house. So in Texas, specifically in Dallas, the county only reassesses the property taxes once every year. So if you have an existing house, let's say in 2023, they come out between January and April and they say, hey, this is your house, this is what we think the new value is, this is what we think the new property taxes are, for better or for worse. You have time to protest it if you like it. If you don't like it, that's fine, but really, that's kind of the cutoff point, and these are gonna be the new taxes moving forward because there's no big surprises because there's already a house on there. Well, what do we do if the county assessor came out in March and they said, hey, there's no house on this piece of property, there's just dirt. Now there's taxes on the dirt, but the dirt is super cheap. So this is one of the most important parts of the video you have to pay attention to. If a county assessor comes out, we've got raw dirt, just like this desk, The taxes on the dirt are super cheap. Let's just say they're $50 a month. Okay, they're $600 for the entire year. But all of a sudden in March, they start building that house, building that house, building that house, and it gets into November, and now we have a house on here. Well, the county doesn't come out right away and say, hey, you have a $500,000 house, here are the new property taxes. They're no longer on the dirt, they are going to be on the house. And so instead of $50 a month, now with the house, they're gonna be $600 a month, okay? What happens in this scenario is mortgage companies, by design and by guideline in law, are supposed to say, hey, yes, we know the property taxes that exist in the county record right now are on the dirt, but we're kind of in the middle of the year, your house is being completed. We don't want to obviously, set up your property taxes at 50 bucks because your taxes are going to be about 600 on the house. We want to project and say most of the houses in the areas with the schools and the counties and the cities and the hospitals are probably about 600 bucks a month. So what we're gonna do as a lender is we're gonna project what we think the taxes are. We should be about 95% accurate. Close your payment on that. You'll be making payments to the lender. And then what'll happen is next year, when the county actually comes out and says, oh, last time we looked last February, there was dirt, 50 bucks a month. Now we look and it's February and now there's a house. So you bought it for $600,000, $500,000, whatever it is. We think it's worth X, and here is your new tax bill, and here is what the actual value of the house is, and here is what the property taxes are going to be annually. And obviously, as a lender, we just take that and divide that by 12. So let's say we used 600 bucks. That was your payment or tied into your payment every single month. We get to the following year and they come back and say, hey, your taxes are actually $575 a month. Okay, so what would happen? Well, we as the lender would get the actual update from the county and we would say, hey, number one, we would lower the property taxes that are tied to the payment from 600 to 575, so your payment would drop 25 bucks. Hey, that's awesome. Or what if the county comes back and says, you know what, we think your house isn't worth 500. It's been a few months, there's been some sales in the area. We actually think it's worth 525, and so your property taxes aren't 600 a month, they're 625 a month. So we would say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner, we were collecting 600 bucks, it's actually 625. Just a heads up, we were close, but your payment will be going up by 25 bucks. And that's okay. We coach clients on that. We advise them on that. We're very big on advice over price to set you up for success. No lender can get it perfect, but they should get it 90% of what it should be and explain this to the homeowner and the agent so we know. And then once the county actually assesses it the next year, that's when the payment will adjust to what it's supposed to be, for better or for worse, a little up or a little down. But here is where the rubber meets the road and people have all kinds of problems. So whenever you're a buyer and you buy a property, let's say you close in the middle of the year in June, okay? The property taxes, the proration, meaning the prorated portion of the year for the property taxes being due from January until June, are the responsibility of the current owner, the current seller. So when you're buying an existing house and the taxes already exist, and let's say the taxes were $600 a month, what's gonna happen is they're gonna charge the buyer the property taxes all the way through the time that they close, but then the seller turns right back around on the closing disclosure and gives them a credit for 600 bucks because they're responsible for it. So what happens is it ends up being a wash. Hey, there's 6 months of taxes due at $500 a month. That's going to be a $3,000 charge to the buyer. But by the way, the seller is responsible for that because they've been the owner. So the title company will just turn right back around, give the buyer a credit. It's going to end up being a net wash to you as the buyer. So you're not going to absorb any extra money. But on new construction, here is where the shock factor happens, folks. The number one thing is, if you close in June, July, August, whatever it is, and we as the lender are collecting property taxes based on the projected amount on the house at $600 a month, but meanwhile the builder is only been paying or only responsible for the dirt that they're paying for, now all of a sudden we have 6 months of property taxes, or 7 months, whatever it ends up being on the month that you actually close, but let's just use 6 for the time being. If you've got 6 months from January until June, and we're collecting $600 a month on the house, okay? That is $3,600 bucks, but the builder has only been paying $50 a month on the dirt. We have an issue. What's the issue? Well, the issue is you as the buyer are going to end up bringing way more cash to close to the table because we're collecting 6 months at $500 bucks, which is $3,000, and then the builder's giving a credit for 6 months, but only at $50 a month. And so the issue is that's only a $300 credit. So if we're charging $3,000 bucks for taxes and they're given a credit for 300 bucks, what does that mean? That means you as the buyer are going to have to come to the closing table with an extra $2,700 because the builder's not going to give you a credit for the house part because they've only been paying on the dirt. We as the lender can't just say, well, we'll collect on the dirt because that's not right and there'll be too much payment shock and it won't set you up for success. So the key box in here is, I see this all the time, when a mortgage company will send an itemized fee worksheet or a loan estimate or whatever they call it to the consumer on a new construction, they don't show that a lot of the time, whether they're being negligent, whether they don't care, whether they do it tactically to just get the consumer bought in. I don't know, I don't want to speak for them, but what we'll see is they set it up to where it looks like the same end dollar cash to close to the buyer as if they were buying an existing house, right? Hey, existing house, existing seller credit, net wash, there's no extra money. And then what happens is when they go to close and get to the finish line, not only do sometimes the builder's lender or the lender, whoever they're using, doesn't calculate the tax calculation on the property right for the monthly payments, what they don't do is they don't show the buyer up front, hey, by the way, we have to collect this many months on the house. The builder's only going to give you this many months on the dirt. There's going to be a delta, so you've got to come to the table an extra $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. The truth of the matter is that you would have to come with that money anyhow, because that's how it works on new construction, if you're including your taxes and insurance on the payment. But don't you just want to know this up front? The problem is when you get to the finish line, it's been 8-9 months, you're building the house, they're going to send you a final closing disclosure, hopefully a week or two prior to, and all of a sudden you're going to see this jump. So if you were thinking you were going to bring $50,000 to the table, and then all of a sudden that tax difference and that proration is $4,000, your cash to close goes from 50 grand to 54, and it's a sticker shock. And then the buyer goes, wait a sec, I don't understand what happened here. And all of a sudden that lender or a loan officer has to basically tell you what I've told you on this video, which is, well, we're paying on the dirt, you have to do the house, we didn't know the tax calculations, blah, blah, blah. The truth of the matter is they know what to expect. They should be doing it on the front end, setting you up for success so there's no big surprises. If they took the time or had the knowledge to do this early, and it was like $54,000 in the beginning, $54,000 in the end, and said, hey, let me break this down to you and show you exactly how this works and no big surprises, but just so you know I don't want it to be messed up in the end, you guys would be like, okay, cool, no worries, I understand. The problem is, by design, respectfully, a lot of new construction builder lenders, they're not mortgage advisors. They take applications, they're waiting for the next person to walk through the door, and they just throw out a piece of paper and it kind of has some numbers on it and no one knows how to read it because the buyer doesn't know that, what the taxes are on the house, and the realtor sometimes can't look at it, and so they just are all excited and emotional about building the house, and they're holding onto a piece of paper and the paper says $50,000 cash to close, and you're like, great. And so you wait, 9 months goes by, the house gets complete, everyone's good, and you go to close, and all of a sudden those numbers change at the end, and there's sticker shock on the increase, and everybody goes, hang on one second, what happened here? I don't understand. And then that lender has to jump in last minute, even if they do, and say, oh, well, this is how it works, blah, 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 okay? So that's part one. There's a quick part two that I want you to know on this video, and I know this is a long one, but it's important. So you can expect that. So the most important thing is make sure the property taxes on the proration, when it's called reserves and tax credits, are done properly in the beginning, so that way there's no big surprises in the end. And what this comes down to is you have to push the builder's mortgage lender and say, hey, I need this, I need your help, these numbers need to be accurate. The problem with that is part two. A consumer, a buyer, doesn't know what they're reading. They look at a piece of paper just like you and I look at an x-ray, and we're like, hey, doctor, tell me what this x-ray says. So you say, hey, mortgage person, tell me what this says. Well, it's just a bunch of numbers. So if you don't know if the numbers are accurate, you take it for granted in your head that this loan officer knows what they're doing, things should be good, but don't do that in the beginning. You as a buyer, plus you as your realtor, have to get that loan estimate or closing disclosure or loan estimate or itemized fee worksheet up front. Hopefully we're taking care of you, but if we're not, because you're using the builder's lender for an incentive or whatever reason, you got to get that stuff in writing. And then once you have it in writing, the most important piece is you got to know how to read it. And if you, the buyer, doesn't know how to read it, and if your realtor doesn't know how to read it, how are you going to be able to look for these mistakes? This is where you need somebody with experience, with knowledge, that understands how all this stuff works. And years ago, back in 2012 to 2016, I was a preferred lender for multiple subdivisions in Dallas. So I'm very familiar with new construction, how all this stuff works. I used to set clients up for success early. And people were thankful for that. And the problem is people just want to know the truth. They just want to know it early versus all excited about their house and then finding out late. The second piece is sometimes lenders will get a little tricky with the buyer, and to make the payment feel lower or make the cash to close less, they will do what's called a blended rate. So a blended tax rate is, hey, there's 50 bucks for the house. 50 bucks for the dirt, 600 for the house. If we do this one, it's going to be an issue, and lenders by law are not supposed to do that. If we do this one, the payment might be too high and the cash to close might increase. So let's do a blended rate. We'll take the 50, we'll take the 600, we'll marry them together. It's going to be an average of 375. So we use 375 for the payment and then 375 for the credit. And so it's not 100% accurate, but it's not extremely high, extremely low. And sometimes they'll do that as well. They shouldn't, but what they'll do is they'll do a blended so it's kind of in the middle. So your sticker shock at the end is not 5,000, it's only 2,000. The challenge with that is that when they use that blended tax rate, it also goes into your monthly payment. So the problem is the payment starts out low at $375 a month and you're all excited, everything else is good. And then when you go to the following year and the county reassesses it and says, hey, your property taxes are not $375 a month, they're $600 a month. All of a sudden, your payment jumps up $225 the following month, and then you have sticker shock. And then you call the lender and you're like, what happened here? And they're like, hey, we did a blended rate. Don't you remember? We showed you this. I don't know what a blended rate is. No, here's a form. It says we're using a blended rate. This is not the actual tax calculation. It may go up the following year. And at the very bottom, it says, you're okay signing off on this and you're not going to sue us. It's called a hold harmless. Well, people don't know what they're signing. The lender's not going to explain that. A lot of times the realtor doesn't know either, and people are just emotional and they're signing it, getting it all done, and they find out the hard way at the end or the following year. So this is really to just inform you guys of like protect early, protect up front, because you as the consumer are going to lose and get the big punch in the face at the very end of the transaction or the following year. And I hate that for clients, specifically first-time buyers on new construction houses, because everything's all good and they're excited, and then it goes bad at the very end on the closing, or it goes bad the following year, and they don't set you up for success, okay? So I'm hoping that you guys get the calculations on this, you understand how it works, and you guys can go back to this and refer to it with either being a buyer or with your agent and try to ask these questions early and upfront, so that way you get the truth. There's no big surprises at the end of the transaction, and there's no big surprises the following year with your monthly payment whenever they reassess the property taxes through the county and things change and go up. So listen, I know this was a long video, but hopefully you found it valuable, useful. You got some information out to protect yourself if you're looking for a new construction. If you know anybody else that could benefit from this video, do me a favor, share it with them. Like, comment, subscribe. It would really help our channel continue to grow. And if you want to have conversations about pre-approvals, housing market, your financial situation, or anything mortgage related, do me a favor, reach out to us, call us, email us, text us. We're always here for you. Until next time, stay tuned.